Okay, we're going to look at sketching linear relationships using the x-intercept and the y-intercept method. Okay, so let's first of all talk about what is the x-intercept and what is the y-intercept. So the x-intercept is where the line cuts the x-axis. So if we go down here to the line cuts the x-axis at -2. So the x-intercept is -2. So that's what we're going to write down over here, -2. Now the y-intercept is where the line cuts the y-axis. Well, the line cuts the y-axis at 6, so the y-intercept is 6. Now, there is a technical difference between the x-intercept and its coordinates. The coordinates of the x-intercept, if you look at that, x is -2 and y is 0. And for the y-intercept, the x coordinate is 0 and the y value is 6. Okay, so this is the coordinates of the x-intercept. The x-intercept is -2, but this is the coordinates. The y-intercept is 6, and here are the coordinates for the y-intercept. So just be aware, when they say, what is the x-intercept, you just have to put down the number. But look, if you write down the coordinates as well, we're still going to give it correct. Okay? Now, what you should notice is that for the x-intercept, the y-coordinate is always 0. So have a look. You can see here that the y value is 0. Right? Now, why is that so? It's because any point on the x-axis has to have a y value of 0. So if you're talking about the x-intercept, okay, down here, let's change colors for a minute. So here is my x-intercept just here, okay? And if you wrote the coordinates of that point there, that'd be -2, 0, okay? So the y, it's a little bit not so neat there. Let me try that again. -2, 0. So the y value of the x-intercept has to be 0 because the x-intercept sits on the x-axis, which corresponds to 0 on the y-axis, okay? So for the x-intercept, the y-coordinate is always 0. Now, it's the other way around for the y-intercept. So if you come to the y-intercept, let's change colors again. So here's the y-intercept, and its coordinates are, a little arrow there. Coordinates at that point there are 0, 6, okay? So the x value of the y-intercept is always going to be 0, and that's because on the y-axis, right, the y-axis, every single point there on the y-axis has an x value of 0. So think of this as this is the way I think about it. I think of the opposite. For the x-intercept, it's the y value, which is 0, and for the y-intercept, it's the x value of 0. If you think of those as opposites, that's y, and that value there is the x value, okay? All right, so just to reiterate that, for the x-intercept, the y-coordinate is always 0, and for the y-intercept, the x-coordinate is always 0, as you can see there. So let's put that into action. We're going to sketch this function here, 2x minus 3y equals 6, by finding the x and the y-intercepts. Now, step 1, to find the x-intercept, substitute y equals 0 into the equation. So here's my equation. I'm just going to put y equals 0 here. So I'm going to get 2x minus 3 times 0 is equal to 6. It's going to give me 2x is equal to 6. Divide by 2, divide by 2, cancel, cancel. So x equals 3 is the x-intercept. Okay, so you have to substitute y equals 0 into the equation to get the x-intercept. Now, to get the y-intercept, you do the opposite. You substitute x equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to put x equals 0 into this equation. So this time it'll be 2 times 0 minus 3y equals 6. Okay, so 2 times 0 is just 0. So that gives me minus 3y equals 6. And divide by negative 3 to get the y by itself. Cancel, cancel. And that gives you y equals negative 2. Okay. Okay, so now we're in a position to plot those two intercepts and then draw the line. So x equals 3. I'm going to put a little dot at x equals 3. That's the x-intercept. And y equals negative 2. That's down here. So those are my two intercepts. And then you're going to get a line and you're going to draw a line right through those 2 points. And again, just if I join those dots there, if I can just re-emphasize again for the umpteenth time, don't just join the dots, you have to draw the line through and past those points to show that it cuts both axes. That's close enough. Okay, and the other thing is you must also put arrows on the end of the line. Okay, so there's the arrow, and technically you should also label the line with the correct equation. So 2x minus 3y equals 6 is the equation for that line. Okay, so pause the video and see if you can do question 2 by yourself. I'm obviously going to do it, but pause the video and see how you go with this one. Okay, so we'll start off with the x-intercept. That's the first thing to find. Now for the x-intercept, you substitute y equals 0 into your equation. Okay, so we can do that. 0 is equal to, so where the y is, you will put 0. So 0 equals minus 2x plus 5. We need to get the x by itself, so you take 5 from both sides, so you get negative 5 equals negative 2x. Then divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and you get x equals negative 5 over negative 2, which is just 5 over 2, or you could write that as 2.5. Okay. Now, what about the y-intercepts? For the y-intercept, we know what to do there because it tells you on the previous page. For the y-intercept, you are going to sub in x equals 0. Okay, so think back to your equation. What was your equation? Y equals negative 2x plus 5. That's your equation. So you're going to sub x equals 0 into that equation. So it's going to be y equals negative 2 times 0 plus 5. Negative 2 times 0 is just 0. So y equals 5 is your x-intercept. Now, if you look at those values, x's are going up by halves. So I'm going to use a scale of halves on the x-axis. So I'm actually going to go a half, 1, a half, 2, half, 3. That way I can plot 2.5 exactly. So every 2 squares I'm going to put a number. Okay, and that means I'm going up by halves, aren't I? Because 2.5 is just right there. Now for the y-intercept was 5, so I'm just going to go up by 1s for that. So 1. So every single square will be a distance of 1. So notice I've used a different scale, if you like. Each square on the y-axis is 1 unit, but each square on the x-axis is half a unit. Okay. Now the good thing about that is that allows me to plot 2.5 for my right. I can get the x-intercept perfectly there, 2.5, and then 5 on the y-axis. So now I'm going to get my line, and okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to obviously draw a line through those 2 points. Okay, so through those 2 points, don't just join the dots. There we go. And there we go, there's your arrows, and don't forget to label the equation of the line, which is y equals minus 2x plus 5. Okay, right, that is it. That's the method. So we'll leave it there for today.